Welcome back to the Aro Benaiah Show, where we spotlight the builders, the entrepreneurs, trade people, and leaders who turn grit into greatness and create business with heart and purpose. Today, I'm joined by Pepin, an international speaker, human behavior specialist, and consultant who has spent over 15 years helping CEOs and business owners overcome burnout, scale their company, and reconnect with the passion that he started it all with. Akali has a rare gift of blending behavioral science with practical business strategy. She has shown leaders how to grow their companies without losing themselves and how to turn obstacles into leverage points for fulfillment and success. Whether you are running a small operation or leading a growing team, these conversations will help you see leadership, growth, and purpose in a whole new light. Once again, it's really a pleasure having you on the show, Kali.
Yeah, thank you for having me, Aro.
Yeah, thank you. I'm so glad we're having this conversation. So, Kali, how was it like growing up for you?
Which part?
Starting from being curious, growing up, how your idea of entrepreneurship started and your work.
Okay, yeah. So it was fun. It was really fun. So I grew up in a family of entrepreneurs, and even from a really young age, my dad, he was building a film business. So he was in the film industry, and he was building a film company in a sense. So he was making and producing and selling films, and that's when he first got started when I was very, very young. So a little bit right before I was born. So I got to see him do that. My mom, she was working at my grandma's restaurant. So she had a restaurant and most of my family worked there. So I got to see, my grandma and her restaurant. And when that finished, my mom went off and kind of started her own business, and she was doing like travel agent stuff, and that was cool. And then she worked from home. So it was the first time I got to see someone work from home. Yeah. Simultaneously, like my aunt and uncle, they were building they had like an aviation sort of business. I guess it's hard to really nail it down, but they were doing like things in the film industry and kind of local stuff. They would be kind of the local person if you want to learn how to fly, to do stuff like that. So they had stuff like that. So I've really been surrounded by entrepreneurs, like genuinely. And to me, when you have the choice, I thought that side of the family had a lot of fun and they
Wow,
seemed to really enjoy things,
amazing,
and I figured it
amazing,
out. So I was like, maybe I'll try that.
amazing, amazing. They are not looking more like a tribe of mentors, being that you have a whole lot of them across different industries, even working from home too, which is quite very amazing. So, Kali, you have dedicated your career to understanding human behavior. What drew you to that field in the first place?
Yeah, just a desire to understand my own self, understand myself, understand the people around me. And that was definitely the first driver. And then once I started working with people, I got hooked pretty fast because it's really inspiring to help someone make a meaningful change in their life. Like it's a very inspiring thing to do. And so, yeah, you can get hooked on it pretty quick once you have one of those experiences. It's pretty impactful even in your own life. So that was definitely that dynamic. And I really just wanted to transfer that more and more to business and entrepreneurship, because anyone who's had a business knows like there's no way you can avoid growth. And sometimes it can be really tough. So yeah, just helping make those journeys easier, because businesses really truly make an inspiring impact. So I just wanted to make sure that they could keep doing that. And the best way to do it, make sure the leaders are doing well.
Wow, this is really pretty amazing. And it's the fact that you drew you to behavior, uh, what actually more like drew you to be human behavior. It was because of the fact that you were trying to discover yourself. You were trying to know more about yourself. And now it's even making me now more curious. So was there more like a defining moment that made you realize mindset is as important as strategy in business? When was the moment you actually get to discover this?
Yeah, I think, when you build a coaching practice, there's a lot of coaching practices out there. There's very traditional ways to be a coach. And would say that I don't have a traditional coaching business. Like mine more is just a business. And so when I first started to try to create traditional coaching businesses, I really struggled. It just didn't work for me. And all the things that work for all the other people, I hated, and I just wasn't getting results. And so I really realized like it was time for me to figure out my own way. Like how would I do this in my way, my form, something that inspired me, but also was going to get me results and got me to get creative, got me to think outside the box. And I just started creating it, I guess, more like a business instead of a coaching business. So I'm grateful though. Like I don't want to be trapped in the coaching business role. I don't enjoy it. I know a lot of people enjoy it. I do not. Yeah, I do not.
Wow.
So I'm grateful it didn't work.
Amazing. I think this is very lovely, being that you were able to kind of go through the route of behavior, and you understood yourself, and going to the traditional coaching system didn't work for you. You were able to find out a better routes that work well for you and that you are very happy with that. This is really quite amazing.
Mhm.
So you have worked more like closely with CEOs who often feel burnt out or stuck. What are some of the most common causes of those burnouts?
Yeah. So what happens is when we're doing things that are very unfulfilling to us, we start to burn out. So if you think about how you spend your day and you think about something that you know you could do every day, no matter what's going on, no matter what's occurring, you will constantly find the energy to do that thing. You can't get burnt out from inspiration. Inspiration doesn't burn you out. You get burnt out doing things that come out of desperation, things that are low on the totem pole of your core values, things that you're not fulfilled by. And so when we look at how these CEOs, these founders, owners are spending their day, it's really important to check in. It's like, well, what are your daily tasks? If I took which ones away, would you be able to focus on what energizes you the most? And so we focus on delegating those things that really are true low value, low priority to them so that they can focus on what matters most and not just move forward in the company, but move forward in a more fulfilled way. So that's the top focus is delegate as much as you can, delegate, delegate, delegate.
Wow, amazing. And I think the way you just make reference of it, it just dawned on me that a whole lot of founders and CEO find it difficult to delegate, meaning that starting out, it was more like a one-man business is growing up. They will not have a whole lot of workers who work with them, but still, there's still that part of them that they don't want to delegate, which needs to be learned along the way anyway. But how can leader tell the difference between needing rest and needing a real business or mindset shift?
Uh, So basically, kind of everything gets really combined when it comes to personal development and strategy. Like, I definitely like to do both because sometimes we'll have a challenge in our business. And within that challenge in business, I could go and I could find out what's wrong and what's being challenged within the company, right? So we could find that, we could put in new strategies, new systems, reorganize things. We can dive in and have fun there, but also it's to look at like how it impacts you. Like I was working with an individual who had a significant quantity of money stolen, millions of dollars from one of their employees, right? So they found out there was some theft. And so if we looked at, yes, restructuring it, getting creative, putting new systems, processes in to make sure stuff like that doesn't happen again, but simultaneously, like you're pissed, you're pissed off. And it's taking up a lot of space and time in your mind. So we kind of collaboratively work on the mindset component plus also the strategy. And it also depends on how big of a challenge it is. For the larger challenges, it usually requires both the mindset and the strategy part, just because something like that, it is challenging to get over. It's not to like have unrealistic expectations that you're going to be able to work on it without having some sort of perceptual shift and move forward without having like resentment and anger and frustration and all these fears and brain noise, basically. I call it taking up valuable real estate in the mind that nobody paid for. So I want it out. And so when we work on those dynamics and have the strategy side by side, it doesn't only help you move forward on a physical level, but also on an emotional level. And it makes sure that you don't have that noise running in your head on a regular basis caused by these previous challenges. And not always do you need that. Sometimes they're very small challenges and it's like, let's just strategy it is. Like, that's all we need,
Yeah, yeah,
But the
amazing.
big ones,
Yeah, and I think
yeah.
when I was reading to you about, you actually make reference of it that every challenge stems from those perceived flaw, and I would like to actually more like just shine a bit of light on it. What do you mean by perceived flaw when it comes to leadership and when it comes to those challenges?
Yeah, so we perceive flaws in ourselves and even situations, right? But the truth is every situation is there for us. Whether you appreciate it or not is part of the mindset and the perceptual component, right? So perhaps you have a flaw in the business. That individual that I was sharing with you, how that served him is it really got him back on track. It got him back on track, reconnected to his mission, reconnected to his vision, reconnected to his purpose. So without that challenge, he wouldn't have had that. It also made him scale and structure the business in such a way that it was going to become a sellable business so that he could focus on what he truly wanted to focus on next. And so if they didn't have that that theft, none of that would have occurred. He would have been stuck in doing what he did, which wasn't inspiring to him. So interestingly enough, we look at this as like a flaw and an other individual flaw in a situation, but in reality, it was the perfect storm that got him to where he's meant to be. Not to where he thought he should be, but where he's destined to be. And that brings a level of appreciation for your life, right? As opposed to, again, sitting there with this noise of being frustrated and angry. You can be frustrated and angry all you want. Sometimes people say, well, I don't want to let it go, right? Don't. It's not hurting the other person. It really just impacts you. I'm like, you do what you need to do. But for me, it's my head. And when I'm frustrated and I'm angry, it's all in my head and it doesn't get out of there and it gets noisy and chaotic. And that impacts me more than it impacts the other person. So I just like to work on it and I just want it out. Like I said, valuable real estate, get out. The perceived flaws in ourselves is we will look at specific qualities and characteristics and behaviors and we'll label certain ones as good and certain ones as bad. And we'll sit there and we'll try to get rid of what we perceive as bad. And that actually will disconnect and get rid of a whole part of yourself, right? Conflict is a great example. There are certain cultures, some Asian cultures really don't like intense conflict, right? But I grew up in an Italian family. I mean, it was just people yelling at each other all the time. Like yelling is, to me, it's not a big deal, but in modern day culture, it's actually a really big deal and it's considered toxic. Ironically, something that was considered loving when I was growing up is often considered toxic in modern day environment. I'm just like, I'll look and I'm just like, what are you talking about? I'm not raising my voice. What are you talking about? And then I listened, I was like, oh, there's the Italian Carly. She's coming out, right? So it's a funny thing where it all becomes about perception, right? So we could perceive that conflict and being loud or noisy, I'm using Italian as example, I'm a good example to use, is a flaw. And I should get rid of that. But then I would be getting rid of a whole part of myself, like my whole history, my whole culture. And that's not true. The truth is that it is not just a challenging thing, but it's also supportive, right? And if I don't actually look at how some of these things that I'm labeling as flaws also serve the world, serve the people around me, serve the world, I'm not seeing the whole picture. I'm only seeing part of the picture. So we can even come forward and whatever you perceive your flaws are, right? Some people think it's education. Some people think it's like, I'm not smart enough to do this. When I was younger, it was like, am I old enough to do this? And I had all this stuff and I'm a female. So I was like, can I work with like males and like a male driven, culture, and all that gets stuck in your head. So all of those perceived flaws, when you ask how those perceived flaws serve the individuals that you're connecting with, that you have connected with, and how it actually is also an advantage, you start to see that they're not really flaws. It's just a different edge. It's just a different thing. And sometimes it'll challenge people no matter what, but that doesn't matter. Like, that's life. Sometimes you breathe and you challenge someone because they've been having a bad day. Like, I wouldn't try to rein yourself in too much. I've walked by a stranger before, and I'm from LA, so we have an interesting crowd. And I just remember walking by a stranger on one of the beach paths and them just screaming at me and yelling at me. And I've never met this person ever in my entire life. And then they just walk away and they're just walking the other direction, screaming at me. And I was like, I literally was just walking. Like, I don't know. So I have no idea what I even did. But like you said, like, you're going to challenge people whether you like it or not. If you don't love and appreciate yourself for challenging people, life is going to get hard.
Yeah,
Like,
so
life is
true,
going to
so
get
true,
really hard.
so
Yeah.
true. Amazing, amazing, amazing. Yeah, thanks for actually more like sharing that when it comes to perceived flaw. And I think it being addressed is very key, being that it's definitely going to be triggered by people around us every now and then if it is not settled and you didn't get to kind of understand yourself better towards knowing how to deal with it and how to deal with business. So, and this is really amazing. So many entrepreneurs want to grow, but they often end up growing out of alignments. What does it mean to scale with purpose?
Yeah, scaling with purpose means that you're really fulfilled by what you're doing. It's going to be hard. Some days it's going to suck. It's going to be really challenging, but you still love what you do. Like, you don't feel like you need to get out. You don't want to run. You may take breaks from time to time, but you're not desperate to take a vacation. Like, I want
Hmm.
to help people feel as fulfilled in their business world as they do in maybe another area of life that's one of their favorites. So yeah, when we get out of alignment with who we are and we start to get burnout, you start to get the Monday blues, right? You're like, "I don't actually want to go into my own company on Monday." That's a big deal. Like, I want people to wake up excited and inspired and fulfilled by their daily to-do list. It's really, really important because a business, especially for business owners, like businesses can be life consuming. Like they can take up the majority of your day and sometimes night and sometimes weekends and holidays. So if you're not loving what you do, that makes it really hard, really, really hard. So that's why it's so important that we continue to refine and fine tune and keep that alignment so that we can ensure that as we scale our companies and they grow bigger, if it does demand more time, it doesn't feel like it's demanding your soul, you know?
Yeah, yeah, it's okay. I think this is really amazing, especially how you explain it, being that uh out of alignment simply means in terms of you don't like what you do again. It's just you more like showing off or you're not interested in what you don't like. And most times this will cause burnout compared to when you're still passionate about the goal, passionate about helping others, passionate about helping your
Mhm,
clients. Those particular ones. Scaling in those particular environments simply means you're scaling with the purpose and hearts, being that to help more
mhm.
people and to create better solutions compared to when you are not aligned and you feel like taking vacation without even showing up anymore. And I think this is very, very key. So, what is one question leaders should ask themselves before making a major growth decision?
Yeah, so if it's a personal growth decision, whenever it's personal, I do suggest they understand their own core values, right? Their own core values and their own purpose in life. I do have an assessment on my website, which is pretty cool. So it helps you understand your core values. And if it doesn't align with your values and your core purpose and mission in life, like you're probably not going to want to move forward with it, right? So really getting clear on what's important to you and where you're going is very, very, very important. And that will help you on a personal level to make sure you're making the best decision because it's not always the right decision. It's not a wrong decision. It's just going to be the best decision to get you where you're wanting to go. So if part of it is focused on family, friends, like I was just talking to an entrepreneur, there's a ton of different things that they can do in their business. They've already got a thriving family owned business. It's doing really well, like internationally known at this point, right? But if we look at what the end goal is, the end goal is for that business to bring the family together. And that's the bigger vision for that individual. And they know that. And so every decision in that business doesn't just align with business, it also aligns with how are we creating this business in such a way that our family can thrive, right? And simultaneously being realistic, if it doesn't thrive with the family, how are we also planning for that? So you can see that even that personal decision is making a very big difference on how that individual is running a company, versus someone else who doesn't have that personal mission and vision. Guess what? Maybe they have a different goal in the company. Like I have an individual who doesn't have that mission to have that family owned business, but they also have a mission within the company. And the mission within the company is to reach a certain degree, sell it, and then actually build a different business around a unique inspiration that they kind of uncovered in the past couple years that really fuels them. So once they figured that out, they're like, let's build this, let's sell it, and exit me to get in here. And I was like, go time. Right. And so that's their goal. So now every decision that they make is how will this grow and expand this business to make it national so that I can create an inspiring exit that would be able to pay me to do what I love. Right. So they're focused on that goal, that mission, that vision. Sometimes companies want to stand the test of time. No, they want to be around forever. They want to leave a legacy. And so again, if you don't understand not just personal goals, but also professional goals, right? The goal of the company, what it's there for, just like you have a purpose, the business has a purpose. And when you know what the purpose of the business is, guess what you're going to do? You're going to make your decisions and take actions based on those specific goals. And so it's really important for you to understand your own personal goals and vision, right? And then also the company's personal goals and visions. Like, what is the company going to achieve? Where is it going to go? And again, it might be fluid. Like I did have that client. I've worked with him for almost a decade now, so a few years ago is when he really uncovered something personally for himself that changed the game. So it went from, I'm going to build this company and keep building it. It's going to stand the test of time to it's still going to stand the test of time, but it's not going to stand the test of time in my hands anymore. I'm going to pass it on. And that change changed how his goals were being played out, you know? So really paying attention to yourself and also simultaneously the company to make sure that whatever decision you make is in alignment with what matters most. And then decisions become really easy because you can have 10 decisions in front of you and be like, this one is funny. Like you'll look at it and you'll be like, this one I didn't think this would be the one that aligned the most, but this is the one that matches up and will get me closer to where I'm actually going. This one takes me away from it. This one makes it confusing. This one adds something that's like not really going to be helpful, but this one right here, that gets me closer. But you'll know and you'll be able to do that more effectively and efficiently when you have that information.
Well, that's really amazing. I think it just
Mhm.
speaks volumes before making a decision, especially if it's going to be personal. You need to know more like, but yeah, you need to understand yourself so very well for you actually more like making that decision. And when it comes to the company, you need to know what the visions, the mission, and the goal, and the purpose you're looking forward to achieving with the company. I think having those things aligned simply means it's even way more like 50% of the decision you are going to make in respect of that is already being solved, being that you know where the focus is compared to just making a decision without no basis or no context. Yeah, this is really amazing. So you have heard, so how can leaders use human behavior principle to create more effective system and process in their business?
Yeah, well, when we think about it, every system and process is run by a person, you know, it's run by a person. And so when I think about a system and process, you could have the best systems, best processes on the world, but if the people aren't engaged, if the people aren't actually implementing it and implementing it well, like it's just a crappy system. So that's why human behavior is so important in a company because a company is based off people, right? And technically, even AI. AI is programmed by a person. AI is going to be run by a person. Like you still are forever always going to require people. And so understanding your people and having a better idea of like who they are, what they're doing well at, what they're excelling at, what they suck at. You know, you might have someone in a position that they're really bad at and not pay attention to the fact that this is a great individual in a company that could really thrive if they were just in the right position, you know? So that's why when we think about human behavior, it's the dynamic of understanding people, understanding what they're good at, what they're bad at, where they thrive, what kind of personality types they have so you can put them in a seat where they will thrive the most. It gives you two things. As an employer, it gives you the individual that is going to be the most productive, the most fluid in their job, the most adaptable to change, the most innovative, the most inspired to be there. But simultaneously for the employee, like it gets them to like coming to work every day. And to me, I think that's also a real gift that you can give people. That's one thing that I think I got to see with my dad is everyone loved working at that company that he built. Everyone loved it. And to this day, it's like decades later, you get to hear about people and how much they loved it and appreciated it. And they talk about the days of this company, right? And more so than larger corporations that they've moved on to. Why? Because he created an environment where people were allowed to thrive. They had fun doing what they wanted to do. They had a blast and the company thrived too. And that's like a big deal. And also as an owner, like if you see that you're making a difference in someone's life, not just professionally, but personally, and they enjoy what they do and they go home and they get to share it with their family and like they're not stressed out all the time and hating their life, hating going to work. Like it feels good. It feels good to make that kind of an impact. So it's kind of like a twofold thing. It really serves both parties to just do the extra work, go the extra mile and like pay attention to your people, like invest in them.
Yeah, this is really amazing because it just don't know me why you're actually making those discussion. Most times, there's a whole lot of things when it comes to communications and getting human behavior right when it comes to businesses. A whole lot of employees are not being understood. They don't know where they stand. It's as though they are just more like cog in the system without being understood. And the way you just make reference of it simply means it's going to boost their confidence the more in terms of their productivity and everything they put into the business if they know they are understood and they know that the business beyond just more like doing the things it does, it actually cares about them. Actually, more like looking forward to them succeeding in their endeavors and looking forward to them making progress, becoming more better in what they do. I think at the end of the day, there's going to be a whole lot of success stories surround their being there, being that they are not just filling the gap box, so they're actually making significant move, which is really amazing. So, how do pride and shame affect the way leaders lead? And how can balancing both make them stronger?
Yeah, so whenever we have pride, we've over exaggerated ourselves, and it's very easy for it to happen. You'll also notice like you'll over exaggerate yourself. You'll have a positive label on something. You'll say, well, I'm always this way and I'm always that way. That's not true. If I had a camera on you 24 hours a day, you're not always one way. You are 100% with all certainty both sides. I am nice and I am mean. I am kind and I am cruel. I am happy and I am sad. I could be really sweet and kind and loving to you, and I could be your nightmare. Like, I could really genuinely be both. If you had a camera on me for 24 hours, you'd be like, holy shit, you know? And that goes for everyone and every person in every part of life. I don't care who you're thinking of. I don't care how amazing you think they are. Put a camera on them for 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and they will blow out all the fantasies that you ever had on them. That's real humanity. That's being a real human being. So if you're over exaggerating yourself and you're puffing yourself up and you're saying you're always this, you're always that, I'm amazing this way, I'm amazing that way, you're blind. You're blind to the other side. You're blind to what you really are. And you're pretending you're someone you're not. And what's interesting is you can't even live up to the standards that you're setting for yourself because you're still a human being. And that's why they say it's the pride before the fall. You're destined to have a fall because if you keep trying to live up to those unrealistic standards, which again, you can't be one side, you're trying to live up to those unrealistic standards, you're going to have a fall. The degree of the fall depends on the actual degree of the pride you have, right? So when we work on balancing our prides, it really helps us to not have like the same degree of fall that we would normally have. It's almost like giving you permission to lessen the fall. You might not get it incomplete right away, but we do the best we can with what we have. We still are human. We're still meant to have a life. We can't like avoid challenges and all this stuff, right? So it's really helpful to notice those things. Also, nobody wants to hang out with the know-it-all, you know? It's like, if you think you're the best at everything, like, I don't know about anyone else, but if you think about the person who thinks they're amazing at everything, like, I don't want to hang out with them. Do you want to hang out with them? No, why? Because it's like, I don't feel like I'm good at everything. Deep down inside, you're like, I don't want to hang out with you. I feel like you're going to judge me. I feel like you're going to look down on me. I can't live up to your expectations. And it's like, I'm actually going to go to this person over here that feels a little bit more real, that has problems and like shares it with me, right? And so it's a really interesting dynamic too when we think of leadership. It's like, if you want people to open up to you, you don't have to pretend like you're the best at everything. People open up and love to follow the individuals that actually are showing growth and development, that have a level of humility, that can admit they like make mistakes and do things. So that's why as leaders, it's really important to like catch our pride and notice it and balance our own perceptions, right? And it's tricky. It takes a lot of time. No one ever talks about pride. It's usually the shame that we talk about because shame's easier to catch, right? Which we'll get into. But the pride is harder to catch because nobody ever trained you
Yeah.
on how to catch it. But a good word is like always. Like when you say, I always do this and I never do this, like there's something that's very black and white inside you and you've created a black and white label, but you really are both sides and you're just not loving and appreciating that both are necessary. And that's kind of also where the shame comes in. Pride will come in because you're very proud of this one thing because you're ashamed that you're also the opposite,
Mm.
so you may be very proud. Like I remember an individual, they were very proud of how honest they were, right? And ironically, I was like, yeah, but you lie to me all the time, girl. I was like, I don't mind. I was like, it's okay. Like, I get it. Like, I get like we're humans and we're gonna lie and you don't have to, but like, I've just never said anything because it doesn't actually, like, I don't get upset with it, right? Like, I'm not mad at it. And the infuriation for sharing that was pretty intense because there was so much pride on being honest and so much shame on lying, right? When you don't actually see that both serve a purpose. Like sometimes people lie to me and sometimes I lie to people. Sometimes we have white lies to make someone feel better, right? Sometimes we have big lies and we get so triggered and challenged by it. But if you go look, it's like, well, what if that person had told me the truth? Would my life have worked out the way I think it did? Probably not. Like there's a reason also, it's like the universe provided you with the opportunity to not get that information. The lie is also there for you. And so when we can look at that dynamic and we can take things out of the pit, we can remove our shame. So balancing our prides also requires balancing our shames, because we'll keep avoiding this other side if we can't actually see that, like, you don't need to be this one way all the time. It's the same with like nice and mean, right? Like if it's the people who say that they're nice all the time, I'm like, stay away from me, because you have a temper and you're going to blow. And when you blow, I don't want to be on the other side. But when people are like, yeah, both, whatever. Sometimes I'm super nice. And sometimes, I have my moments. I'm like, let's talk. We can be friends. Like,
Yeah.
you're in my safe zone. Because that's what happens when you're trying to be the one side and you're so desperately seeking this, right? You're desperately seeking nice, even positivity. You'll get pulled back into the other side, the mean negativity, when something big comes in and erupts almost like a volcano. But when you allow yourself to be both and you realize that both serve a purpose and that it's okay to have both, what happens? Then you actually just get to be present and lead. Like, you don't seek one thing, you don't avoid another thing, you don't have pride, you don't have shame, you just have presence, you just have certainty, you just are who you are. And that's where true authentic leadership comes in. You're also not emotionally connected to either side, which pulls you emotionally in multiple directions. And so if you're always seeking this one side and you have to seek being nice all the time and you avoid being mean, right? In your head, that's going to play out. That's going to be your main role. And that's not you being objective. That's not a goal. That's not a strategy. That's not a vision, a mission, a purpose. Like, none of that is in there. None of that. And so how can you even focus on your vision, mission, purpose, your strategies and your goals if you're so focused on seeking and avoiding certain things? It takes up so much noise in your brain. And that's another reason why it's really important for leaders to just balance their perceptions and understand sometimes both will be necessary. And I
Wow.
think a lot of people can remember mentors who were a little bit tough on them, where they could say, wow, I really appreciated that, because I didn't actually need that nice person. I needed the tough, really tough love. I needed someone tough. I needed someone to push me out of my comfort zone. Or sometimes they just completely do something that pisses you off and gets you out of a situation that you were not meant to be in anyways. Like, take a look at it. It'll be really helpful so that you're not trying to seek a one-sided world.
Wow, amazing, amazing. Thanks for the robust explanation. I think this really spoke volume in respect of balancing between your pride and that of your shape, to being that a whole lot of persons, there's even no person that actually wants to stay with or someone who knows it all. If you knows it all, why do you have to employ me? Why do I have to be your friend? So this
Yeah.
really just speak volume. So you often say that when leader asks the right question, clarity follows. What are some of those powerful questions?
Yeah. So, if we're thinking about like the business dynamic, right? So, if we think about business and how to ask those quality questions in business, it's again really making sure this is where the core values and understanding your core values of a company, the mission, vision, purpose are really important, because that's the top quality question is, can I actually get to where I want to go by doing this, or engaging in this, or changing this, right? And it's a real quality question. As long as you continue to go back to what is the purpose, what is the vision, what is actually your mission, and you're asking questions to make sure you're on track, like, you can really understand if you're going in the right direction. And simultaneously, like, you'll really understand as well, because you'll start to see the little bits and pieces come to life, right? Because we want to make sure those little bits and pieces are come to life. But yeah, really paying attention to where you're going, what you're doing, and just asking those questions to make sure you're there. And also, I like to think about also sometimes acting as your own coach, right? So if something comes up and you're challenged by situations, right, we can very easily emotionally react, and you could still emotionally react. It's not a good or bad thing. Sometimes it happens. But even asking the questions, it's like, well, why did that occur? Why am I really upset? Like, what did actually happen? It's interesting because you could go through, and it's sometimes surprising, by the way. Like, whenever I'm working with someone, I'm very specific on diving deep into why they're actually frustrated, because it is probably not anything that I would have expected. I've gone into some pretty heavy situations, and sometimes the thing that frustrates them the most is lying. Right? Like, you could go and it's like, well, this doesn't bother you, this doesn't bother you, this doesn't bother you. And there's all these extreme things occurring, right? And you're like, I cannot believe this doesn't bother him. In my head, it's like, I can't believe it doesn't bother him. That would make me crazy. Like, I think that would make most of the world crazy. But no, the very specific thing that bothers them is this, right? And so if you can ask yourself that question, you can focus even on the core of where you're most frustrated, because it's not always what it seems. And sometimes it's something that's rooted in present day, and sometimes it's something that's rooted in the past. Once you get really self-reflective, a client he's done really well, where when he gets on a phone, he'll say, I had this crazy situation at work, and I just realized like XYZ was occurring, but what really bothered me is this, and that's actually rooted from my dad. Can we work on my dad today? Great. Okay, done. And so if you can, it's great. It's very helpful. He's working on the root, right? The core issue. So if you can get self-reflective like that, you can realize like these situations that bother you, it may really be rooted in something that you never thought, and all of a sudden those fears and all those different dynamics, the level of self-awareness can increase to such a degree that, it's the best for me too, because we're going to get more work done. We're going to get more work done. We're going to get deeper work done. He gets more bang for his buck because he's really starting to ask quality questions to himself instead of saying my story is correct. He questions his story in so many ways until he finds the truth, And we check on these things whenever we're feeling frustrated, we're feeling challenged, we feel all those emotions that, feel heavy, right? But also when we feel the pride. So if you're feeling over elated, if everything is all positive, there's going to be some elation
Yeah.
there. There's going to be too much of a positive charge there. And also asking yourself questions to see what the truth is, because you might be, wow, I actually have been seeking this because I saw this person do it and I assumed that that was the right way. And you'll realize, like, based on one person and one moment, that you potentially are starting to build your whole life around because you put it so high on a pedestal and have so many positives, you're not even seeing the other side, and you will crash and burn. 100% you'll crash and burn. So really just making sure you pay attention and ask those quality questions to ensure when these various types of emotions come up, or exaggerated emotions, basically, that you're understanding the core of where it's coming from so you can be able to really work through it and move on.
Amazing, amazing. Thanks for sharing that. I think you just speak with them to more like just in retrospect. After things have happened, just sitting down with yourself to ask yourself some key questions, and knowing when the deep root is very, very key towards more like solving it and towards gaining insight on where the root of the problem is. And this is really, really amazing. So lastly, for my audience who feel like they have lost their spark for what they do, what is your best advice to help them fall back in love with their business again?
Yeah. So first off, would love to check in to make sure you're on the right path. Sometimes you're just like not on the right path. And that is what it is. I've also had a client who had that, and he wound up stepping out. He kept a percentage of the company, just got paid less from company profits and stepped out, and his partners replaced him, right? There's so many possibilities in life. Like, nobody is stuck anywhere. So I just also want to say that. You could take the values assessment that I have on my website, because it does help you understand your core values. And you'll see that if you don't think your business is aligned with your core values, that's a huge reason you're burnt out. If you look at your core values and what you're doing every day is not in alignment with them, I would have you write down a list of all the things that you do in a day and see what truly aligns with those core values and what truly doesn't. Because you're going to look and you're going to be like, yeah, that aligns with it. That's actually inspiring to me. I love that. That energizes me. And start to focus more on the things that energize you and delegate out the things that don't. That's the really important component. So yeah, either check it and make sure you're on the right path, but also I love like making that list. All the things you do in a day, check and make sure, does this align with my core values? If yes, I'm fulfilled, I'm inspired, I'm energized, we continue to do those things. If no, delegate it. Or again, sometimes you just drop it. You might look at it and be like, I don't actually even need to do this. I was doing this because someone told me I should do this, but not because I wanted to do this, and it's not even making any progress. I'm just going to drop it. Right. So sometimes we actually drop those things as well. And it's really cool because if you align your tasks every day, even in business, with the things that you love, you'll find that you have the energy to get everything done. It's very cool.
Yeah, amazing,
You
amazing.
become really productive.
Yeah, thanks for sharing that. And I think it's very, very key being that yeah, if you're starting out as a business owner, you're doing a whole lot of couples of things. And I think when the times comes into being, when you're already onboarding some numbers of workers and those who work with you, I think sitting down with yourself to know what energizes you and those things that you can easily delegate, I think it will be the right time to actually delegate them. Also, that you feel energized anytime you comes to work, other than sticking with those your weakness, which you don't have much energy to deal with every now and then. And I think this is really amazing. Yeah, thank you, Kali. So, how can my audience learn more about you? How can they do business with you? And what is the best platform to do this?
Yeah, so head on over to my website, westcoastgrowthadvisors.com. That's a really solid place to connect with me. And then also my LinkedIn. There's also a link on my website to get to my LinkedIn. So both of those are great places to connect. And if you heard me on the show, let me know. So that would be fun because I always like to know when people get insights, and it's fun to hear.
Amazing, amazing. Yeah. What a conversation. Thank you for this reminded us that scaling isn't just about system or revenue. It's about leaders behind the business. If today episode speak volumes, you check out Kelly's free or masterclass and overcoming imposter syndrome at Pepin.com/podcast. That's like gift. It's a pack with insight to help you lead with clarity and confidence. And if you find value in the episode, share with your fellow entrepreneurs and leaders who might need the same reminder that business could grow should expand your life, not consume it. I'm Aro Benaiah, and this is the Aro Benaiah Show, where we celebrate those who build with purpose, passion, and persistence. See you in the next episode. And once again, it's really a pleasure having you on the show.
Yeah, thank you. This has been an inspiring one.
Thank you.